In 1984, shortly after the president had had his triumphant experience at the 40th anniversary of D-Day, when he had spoken at the American Cemetery in Normandy and also at Pointe, as Americans pronounce it, shortly after he came back from the trip, I met with him in the Oval Office. So I said, "Mr. President, how did it go?" And he didn't talk about the reaction of the crowd. And he didn't talk about what a successful day it had been. He didn't talk about any of the media coverage. He didn't talk about any of that. The first thing he said was, "I couldn't believe what I saw. Some of the Rangers went up the cliffs." And he said, "Did you know what happened?" I said, "No." And he said, "Some of those U.S. Rangers who had taken the cliffs at Pointe 40 years before decided they would try it again before the 40th anniversary. And so before Reagan spoke, they got together, and a few of them climbed to the top. One or two of them got to the top. At their advanced age, they wanted to see if they could do it again, and damned if they didn't do it again. And the next day, they were in the audience when the president looked at them and said, 'These are the boys of Pointe du Hoc.'" To me, that was very Reagan. He wasn't interested in any of the outer stuff or any of the self-aggrandizing stuff or how it played. He was interested in who those men were and how they still had the spirit, and some of them the strength that they had had when they were boys. And you know, all presidents set the mood and the tone in their White House, and it might be an anxious White House, it might be a particularly optimistic or affectionate one. In Ronald Reagan's White House, we all admired and loved him. That's why we were there. But at the same time, there was no enforced sense that you had to have an awe of him. There was a surprising absence of formality in the Reagan White House. Sometimes in modern White Houses, they get too carried away in their seeing their president as an unquestioningly brilliant, godlike character, you know? We didn't have to do that in Reagan's White House. We made jokes about him. We had fun with him. We had fun about him. One of the ways you knew the president was coming, by the way, if you were walking through the White House, you assumed the president's in the Oval Office, but sometimes he'd leave there with his detail, go someplace else. I found one of the ways you knew he was coming was you'd be walking along and suddenly you'd hear a burst of laughter. And that laughter told you, the president's coming. I always thought it not insignificant that merry laughter was the sound you heard before Ronald Reagan walked in a room.